Hello and welcome. My name is Mary Hunter. I'm chair of the Clatsop County Democrats. Thank you for coming today. We're excited to have this opportunity to get to know you a little better.
Great. Excited to be here.
Okay, so our first question, please tell me your name and the position you're running for.
So my name is Seth Morrisey, and I'm running for Seaside City Council, Ward 3 and 4 at large.
Okay, and what has moved you to take this role in the community?
So I was born and raised in Seaside, graduated Seaside High School in 2000, and I've just been a lifelong resident of Seaside, and I feel that I can genuinely say that it is the best city in Oregon, but I think there is still a lot that we can do to make life better for the residents, and I feel like I have great experience and ideas, and I'm happy to step up and see if I can be the one to do the job.
Right, and what experience or background do you have that you feel prepares you for this position?
Great question. All right, so I'm going to go into it. I have quite a bit. So as far as Seaside politics, I started in 2012. I was on the Seaside Convention Center Commission. I served on that for 2 years, ended up being the vice chair. And in 2014, a position opened up for the Seaside City Council. Stubby Lyons at the time stepped down because of health issues. So I spoke with Stubby, I got his endorsement, and I put my hat in the race. And I ended up winning, and then I ended up winning re-election. So I was a Seaside City Councilor in Ward 4 from 2014 to 2020. During that time, I served on the Seaside Budget Committee, Seaside Improvement Commission, Seaside Tourism Advisory Committee, as well as doing all my normal city council functions. I was also on the Clatsop County Housing Study Committee, which is basically the framework that we put together, the Clatsop County Housing Study, which was the study that all the cities are now using to get more workforce and low-income housing in the community. I was on the Clatsop Economic Development Resource, the CEDAR board, for 2 years. In 2020, I decided to not run for re-election. I have two daughters. They were 1 and 2 at the time. Spent a little time with my family, did a little traveling. And then after kind of a brief hiatus in 2021, I actually got appointed to the Planning Commission. So I've been on the Seaside Planning Commission since 2021. I've been really proud of the work we've done there. In just a year, we've not only curtailed some of the areas that vacation rentals are in. So we kind of took some areas offline. I think we were the first people to ever kind of scale back some of the vacation rentals in our community. And then we've also removed some roadblocks to some affordable or workforce housing projects. So I think I have a lot of experience just dealing with all the issues that are really important to folks right now.
Okay, thank you. And affordable housing is a huge issue in our communities here on the North Coast. Do you have any thoughts on paths to increase the availability of affordable housing for Seaside?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Clatsop County housing study we did kind of pointed out, what we currently have in inventory and where we're lacking. And it's pretty obvious to anyone paying attention that we're lacking in kind of that workforce housing, the market rate apartments, and then of course the low income. One of the issues and roadblocks that we have for more of these projects to get put online is the fact that Seaside, we do have some of the highest system development fees in the county. I think we still do have actually the highest of any city. So when a developer is sitting back and saying, I want to put an apartment in, they're going to look at cities like Warrenton, they're going to look at Astoria, they're going to look at Seaside. And really the project is not going to be as feasible in Seaside because of those fees. And unfortunately, what's happening is a lot of these projects are going into Warrenton, and that's great for Warrenton, great for Clatsop County. But as a representative of Seaside, I want to see more people live and work in Seaside. All right. So I want to see more of these projects in Seaside. So I think some of the things we can do is remove roadblocks, create incentives. This is a very huge issue. I could go into it, in great detail, but those are kind of the main things that we can do as a council, and we have the authority to do that. And that's definitely something we could do.
Okay, and how do you think short-term rentals fit into that mix?
So they definitely do have an effect on the availability of rentals. Now, when you look at short-term rentals that are on the prom, let's say in Seaside or up by the ocean, obviously those are never going to be workforce housing. Those are not going to be affordable housing. But when we look at short-term rentals that are in some of the neighborhoods that are maybe to the north of the downtown core or to the south, there are certain pockets there that we had identified that these could be market rate, low income type housing areas. And so we took those offline so they wouldn't just keep flipping over to vacation rentals over time, which we see, that expanding over time. So I feel that it does have an effect. I think that short-term rentals definitely have a place in our community. They provide a valuable service, but what I always say is short-term rentals are really, this is a commercial use in a residential zone. That's really what it is. It's residential zoning, but people are operating a business. So I think they need, increased regulation, and we need to be really keep an eye on them and make sure that it doesn't get out of control and really start taking over the areas that could be workforce or market rate housing.
Okay, and what opportunities do you see to diversify the economy in Seaside?
Yeah, great question. I think that's very important because, as anyone who's been to Seaside knows, we are very tourism focused as an economy. And if we were to go into recession, or let's say less people were traveling, we essentially wouldn't have an economy. So I think that, I don't have a specific area that we should, I think that's up to the free market and people that are out there that want to start businesses. But I would love to see more people come into Seaside and really kind of build different economies that aren't just based 100% on tourism, whether that's, small manufacturing, crafts, things like that, that serve the local community, but that aren't based just on tourism coming down from Portland or from the Valley.
Okay, thanks. And that's all I have for the prepared questions. Do you have any other information you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things, obviously, we're dealing with the homeless and mental health crisis. I think that's going to be top of our agenda as we move forward. There's been some work on that, done in the last year from the council, but I think there's still a lot to be done there. One of the biggest things that I'm going to be focused on, both just in the campaign and if I am lucky enough to be elected, is to increase transparency and trust in local government. So when I was on the council for 6 years, and then after this 2-year hiatus off, one of the biggest things that I've identified as an issue is that the public does not feel like their elected representatives are listening to them, for lack of a better word. They don't feel like they're being represented in a lot of ways. And whether that's true or not, I'm not going to say either way, but I'm just saying that that sentiment is there. And so one thing I want to do is really just open up the process of the council of what we do to the public, so they can be involved in that decision-making process throughout the entire thing. So when we do, come and make a decision and enact a policy or pass an ordinance, they feel like they were part of that process and there's more buy-in. So that's going to be something that I'm going to do. I'm going to do it primarily through social media. I'm just going to be very transparent about what we're doing, what the issues are, how you get involved, when the meetings are, all those things, so we can pack that city council chamber with people every single meeting and really get more buy-in from the public on everything we do.
Are the city council meetings in Seaside currently public?
They're public, yeah. And sometimes we have a full house. Sometimes we don't have anyone there. It just depends on the issue. But I think it's just important that we communicate more with the public and invite them in and get more people to be involved, because really the people are the reason we're even in that position. And so, the residents of Seaside need to be involved in that process.
And so if the meetings are currently public, what additional opening up to the community do you see that there's an opportunity for?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes before it gets to the actual meeting. And I think a lot of times, we have, 1 reading, 2 readings, and then we adopt a bill or, a policy. And I think the public needs to be aware that this is being discussed prior to any of that even happening, so they can have their input. Because once it starts, it's like the train, once it starts leaving the station and moving, reading 1, reading 2, adoption, it's very hard to stop that process. So what happens a lot of times is the public doesn't get wind of an issue until it's about to be adopted. And then they come in and they say, hey, we didn't even know about this. But at that point, so much has been invested in that process. It's really hard to turn that train around. And, even guys like RJ Marks here in Seaside, he's always putting out, really great articles about what we're up to. But the reality is a lot of people just aren't seeing it. And so having people aware of what's going on at the very beginning, so they can be part of that process from the start, then they can kind of shape what happens as it starts, getting to that last stages where it's about to be adopted, as opposed to coming at the last second saying, hey, we didn't know about this, but it's too late.
All right. And forgive me, I don't know much about what's going on in Seaside.
Yeah.
these things are already on the agenda, right?
They're on the agenda and they're public and it's posted on the city website. But the reality is I'd say 95+% of people just don't see it. They don't, regularly visit the Seaside website, Seaside's, city website. They're not, looking at the meeting minutes and seeing what we did. I think one of the big things we did when I was in there is we brought everything online. So before our meetings, weren't being filmed, they weren't public in the sense someone could turn it on their computer at home. And that was one of my big pushes when I was in there, is that tech upgrade. We were kind of in the 70s with our technology, and we brought that up to the modern day where now people can stream the meetings online if they can't attend in person, which I think is great. But still just getting that word out that, hey, this big issue is about to be discussed. We're going to pass a policy or an ordinance here. Get involved early so you can kind of shape that, as opposed to come in at the last second. I think that's where the breakdown is. And when the public does come in at the last second and the council just plows forward with something, they feel like they're not being heard. And it's not really even the council's fault, because they've gone through all the legal process. It's just the people, the public weren't involved until that very last step. And so if we can bring people into the process earlier, I think we can get more buy-in of the community. And, when we do move forward with something, there's going to be more buy-in and it's going to be more accepted.
Okay, great. I think I understand now. Thanks.
Yeah. And part of the way I'm going to do that is with social media, because I think that's the easiest way to connect with folks is that's where they are. They're online.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts of which specific social media platforms?
Primarily Facebook. I think that's really where, the political stuff is gonna happen. And one of the, not to name drop, but Henry Balanciefer in Warrenton, I think he does a great job of just really getting on there and talking about the issues, not in a way where he's trying to tell you to do this or that, but just more explaining what's going on, that it's coming up. And so that's kind of the model that I'd like to enact in Seaside, where we're just more transparent and people know what we're up to every day. And then I think that'll just increase trust in what we're doing.
Okay, well, thank you very much. If you don't have anything to add, I think we're up to about 15 minutes. So
great. Thanks for the time, Mary. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming. And once we're done with all of the interviews, we'll be posting these on YouTube and then our social media, and we'll be sending out the links. So you'll get that. So thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye-bye.